So I'll start with verse number 1.2.21. I shall read. आसीनः दूरः व्रजति शयान याति सर्वत्रः कः तं मदामदं देवं मदन्य ज्ञातुम् arhati. So the verse translates to Yam is continuing. All five verses today are spoken by Lord Yam. He says, while being seated, God roams far. While lying down, God travels everywhere. That blissful and calm God, who can know other than me? So let's take this up word by word. Asin is one who's seated. Asan is a seat. Asin is one who's seated. Duram is far. Rajati goes. Shaya is a cot. So Shayan is means lying down, reclining. Yati goes sarvatra everywhere. Kaha who, tam that, mad amadam. So mad is rejoices and amadam is one who does not rejoice. So is calm and equanimous. One rejoicing implies excitement and uh, you know uh, excitement, and the other is that you take it in your stride. So mad amadam becomes who rejoices and who rejoices not. Devam is God. Madanya, other than me. Gyatum, no. Arhati is able. So while being seated, God roams far. While lying down, God travels everywhere. That blissful and calm God, who can know other than me? So let's read it together. आसीन दूर दूरम व्रजति शयान याति सर्वत्र कतम मदामदम देवम मदन्य ज्ञातुम अर्हति. So many aspects of God are being brought out by presenting contradictory nature of God. So when he says that he while being seated he goes far, while lying down he travels everywhere, who rejoices and rejoices not. So these are contradictory statements about the nature of God. The point is that we have to expand our horizons to get some inkling of this amazing uh, God that we are talking about. And we have to go beyond the mundane to see magic in the same environment, the same world, and the same situation. And we need to change our disposition towards both our life and how we uh, try to comprehend God. And also, you may recollect Ishavasya Upanishad, verse number 5, also while describing or trying to attempt to describe God, used contradictions. So the verse read that tade jati tannay jati tad dure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bhayata. So it, which basically translated to, it moves and yet it does not move. It is far and yet it is extremely close. It is within and yet it is without everything. So the Upanishads, this is the way they try to explain that nature which is beyond actually our comprehension. This verse of the Kathopanishad is saying that God, even while resting, is moving everywhere. He's present everywhere. Now, this statement, He's present everywhere. In our scriptures, the axiom that if it is sarvatra, that means it's everywhere, omnipresent, where will such a person move to? So, God for us appears to move through the creation as we see the buds blooming to flowers, the trees growing and then decaying, constellations forming and again imploding. And when we see that, this is one part of that God. This is only what is manifested part of that Brahman. This is not the complete or the true nature of God. Actually, it is much more. The contradictions in the verse propel our mind to reflect on the contradictions and then try to get the entire range of the personality. So then the verse goes on to say that God is full of bliss, and yet is devoid of excitement created by the enjoyment. In our case, it is the enjoyment of the worldly objects. So you get a new dress and you're excited. So God is enjoying everything but is devoid of excitement. And then Lord Yam goes on to say that God is so strange and difficult to understand that only a person like Lord Yam, who has attained that level of spiritual knowledge through his sadhana, can know him. We move on to verse number 1.2.22. I will read. Ashariram sharireshu anvyastheshu avyasthatim mahantam vibhum atmanam matva dhira na shochati. So the verse translates to without a body, seated and unchanging in the transient bodies, knowing that all pervading God, the wise one, grieves not. So let's look at this word by word. Ashariram. So sharir is body. Ashariram becomes without a body. Sharireshu in the bodies. Anvastheshu is which is fleeting, transient. It is moving about, impermanent. Avasthitam seated. Mahantam that great God. Vibhum all pervading. Atmanam is that Paramatman. Matva having understood, having realized. Dheer is the wise one. Na not. Shochati is grieves. So the verse translates to without a body, seated and unchanging in the transient bodies, knowing that all pervading God, the wise one grieves not. So let's read it together. Ashariram sharireshu anvastheshu avasthitam mahantam vibhum atmanam matva dhiraha na shochati. So God resides in all of us and yet is untouched by the properties of what all it resides. Not only us, the entire creation, and is also beyond the creation. But none of our properties affect God. He is not, the Paramatman is not affected, or he does not even possess those properties. So it is the same Paramatman which is there in all the Jivatmas. And therefore, all the attributes of Paramatma are there in the Jivatmas. So if Paramatma is eternal, as we have been discussing all along, whether you're reading Bhagavad Gita or whether you're reading Ishavasya Upanishad or you're reading Kathopanishad, that is the core, that Paramatman is eternal. And because the Jivatma is drawn out of the Paramatman, is part of the Paramatman, or is within the Paramatman, it is also eternal. Why do we, so as a Jivatma, why do we feel limited? It is because we identify with the matter, our body, and that is what is creating the limitation. So, identification with the body creates the limitations, or association with matter leads to our limitations. If we look at the attributes of God, when we are talking about God, God is without a body, so without a physical existence. That means God does not have a body, therefore, it will not have a shadow. It is beyond the gunas. However, we, because of our association with matter, because we have a body, that same Paramatman acquires all the opposites as well. It appears to get a form and therefore a shadow. Form is nothing but the body. And therefore, now because the body is there, all the characteristics of matter, the Panch Mahabhut that we have been talking for quite some time now, apply to the Jivatma. And therefore, it appears to become impure and indestructible. And of course, last time also we had discussed this, that why do we associate with matter? Why do we want to become limited when we can be that all eternal, blissful and peaceful? It is because of our desires leading to vasanas. And now desires or our vasanas lead to actions, and they are all the actions and the vasanas which are born out of guna, as we have been reading in the Bhagavad Gita, are in the realm of matter or are in prakriti. So all our actions and our gunas belong to the matter and not the Atman. So Paramatman has nothing to do with our actions, whether they are good or bad. It enables us, but it does not act itself. The basically the 3 points of comparison, this we had discussed in detail last session also. God is the prime mover, it enables us. But it itself is not interested in acting or not acting, and has no role in the way we function. And we have taken up the examples that we've been taking for years now, that of the fuel in the vehicles, electricity in appliances, right? So when God functions in the transient body, which is what this verse is referring to, the God functions as a combination of all these three things. That means it enables us, but is not interested in acting or not acting, and has no role in how we function. So Atman is not concerned with what is happening or not happening in the world. Being the prime mover, it just enables the entire creation, but has no role in our actions. Actions are born out of gunas, are in the realm of prakriti. This we need to let it seep in our understanding, because then uh, the following of the Upanishad becomes slightly smoother, as you know, because we keep thinking that why our actions stick to us. And this is what actually Bhagavad Gita talked and Ish Upanishad talked, that our actions stick to us. So whatever adharmic actions we do, the consequences will come to us. That's the law of karma, which is in place, which is one of the eternal laws. So now God, who is without a body, is seated and yet is unchanging in these transient bodies. So throughout the movement of the world or the universe of the beings, God remains a silent observer. The wise one understands this. And the verse is saying, does not grieve. See, we another thing, blissful, was also used in the last verse. And we have been talking about eternal bliss and peace and not ashok, which is without grief, again and again. Because the wise one identifies with the essence and not with the body. The sorrow is felt by the body and not by that Paramatman. So the wise one, in the experience of realization, transcends the senses and the worldly pleasures and achievements. And in this state of supreme bliss, because the person has now moved on to that Paramatman, the wise one is not moved even by the greatest sorrow. So that was the import of verse number 1.2.22. I move on to verse 1.2.23. I will read. न अयम आत्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्य न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन यम एव एष वृणुते तेन लभ्य तस्य एष आत्मा विवृणुते tanum swam. So the verse translates to, God cannot be attained through sermonizing, nor through intellect, nor by listening to a lot of discourses. The one whom it selects, that person attains it, to whom it reveals its true form. So let's take this up word by word. Na is not, I am this, Atma is Paramatman, Pravachanen. So pravachan is sermons, pravachanen becomes by sermons or by sermonizing. Labhe, attained. Na, not medhaya. So med is our intellect. So medhaya becomes by intellect. Na, not bahuna, many or much. Shruten, hearing or listening. Yam, whom, ev alone, eshaha. This, that means God. Vrinute chooses. Ten, by that person. Labhe is attained. Tasya, to him. Esh, this Atma is Paramatman. Vibrinute reveals Tanum, a true nature, Swam, its own. So, God cannot be attained through sermonizing, nor through intellect, nor by listening to a lot of discourses. The one whom it selects, that person attains it, to whom it reveals its true form. Right? So, let's read it together. Na ayam आत्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्य न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन यमेव एष विवृणुते तेन लभ्य तस्य एष आत्मा विवृणुते तनुम स्वामः. So see, we have also been reading that Paramatman is subtler than the subtlest. So when the verse talks about that God reveals its own form, this appears again contradictory. So as we have discussed with the last verse, these contradictions are occurring because when anyone is trying to explain about God, even Lord Yam, words are falling short. We because it is beyond words. So, what Yam is saying, Lord Yam is saying that debate, argument, verbosity, and academic investigation cannot enable us to know God. None of this works because we are talking of that infinity, which is beyond all these finite mediums that we are using. And again, I will quote Kain Upanishad, which says that those who think that they can understand God with their intellect have no understanding of God. Only those who realize that Paramatman is beyond their comprehension truly understand it. And this is, of course, we are searching for that God within ourselves. We have to go inwards. And how are we going inwards to reveal that Paramatman is by removing our layers of vasanas, which are the pollutants on our bliss. So we remove those layers, and then self emerges. It is not that we have to go and get it. It's something which is outside. I have to go and acquire it and objectify it. No, it is there within us. It's just that we only have covered it. So the self emerges. It is not attained. It reveals. It is not sought or acquired or gained. We just have to remove the layers of asanas which are concealing Paramatman. So all our effort is still the stage of removing the vasanas. That means we expose ourselves, remove all our pollutants, remove all our coloring, remove everything. And then the verse is saying that the grace of God is what takes us across. Again, we are the in this Upanishad, we are talking about the grace of God. And grace of God, you may recollect, was also talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, I think, a couple of times. So, grace of God is very important. God alone determines who is the true seeker and who has become ready, qualified to become worthy of knowing that Paramatma. So that was verse number 1.2.23. Moving on to verse number 1.2.24, I shall read. Na aviratah duscharitar na ashantah na asamahitah न अशांत मानसः व अपि प्रज्ञानेन एनम आपनुयातः. So the verse translates to one who does not refrain from wrong deeds, is restless, and whose mind is not focused, is anxious, cannot attain Atman even through deep spiritual knowledge. So let's take this up word by word. Na is not avirataha, who is not refrained, who is not turned away, removed. Duscharitarth, from wrong conduct. Na, not ashantaha. Shant is calm, restful. Ashant becomes restless, agitated. Na, not samahitaha, whose mind is not able to focus. This is especially true for meditation because that's the final step you may recollect for the attainment of God. Then na, not ashant manasah. So now it's talking about ashant mind. So mind is not able to focus. So actually it's being repeated. A samahita whose mind is not focused, and ashant manasa is whose mind is not peaceful, not calm. Va, or api also, pragyanen, by deep knowledge. Enam, this, apnuyat, obtains, right? So the verse translates to one who does not refrain from wrong deeds, is restless, and whose mind is not focused during meditation, is anxious, cannot attain Brahman, Atman, even through deep spiritual knowledge. So let's read it together. Na aviratah duscharitar na ashantah na asamahit na ashant manasah vapi pragyanen enam apnuyatah. So this is the prerequisite. What is the prerequisite? One should turn away from bad conduct. One should be free of the activity of the senses. One should be able to calm one's mind and bring it to rest. So, what the verse is saying, just the opposite of these qualities, one who has not turned away from bad conduct, who is not free from the activity of the senses, whose mind is not collected, and whose mind is not at rest, cannot attain God. So, in order to attain God, we have to first and foremost contain our finite faculties. That means we have to bring under control our mind, body, and intellect. And then we have to transcend these because we have to go beyond beyond the finite to achieve that infinite. So we have to even go beyond the intellect, which is in the material layers. It's in matter, and this we discussed again and again. We have been discussing this is done through meditation. And what is meditation? Is the art of focusing our mind on one chosen thought. So we practice it on one thought. And what do we do? That while focusing on that thought, we exclude all other thoughts and bring it to a single pointed concentration on that thought, and actually ultimately even remove that thought, because even that thought is actually limited. It is in the realm of matter. Paramatman is beyond that. So that is the final leap of faith that we take. So the verse is saying that those who do wrong deeds are naturally restless. This is implied that they are restless and anxious and agitated, and therefore they cannot contemplate on God. And in Bhagavad Gita, which was a detailed manual of the technique of right action and how to attain God, Lord Krishna continuously repeated the first and the foremost discipline, which is to control the senses. Right? And that was repeated throughout the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, maybe you can forget the first chapter, but afterwards. In this Upanishad, Nachiketa is already at this stage. So if you look at the section, the previous section, so that was 1.1. When Yam is giving Nachiketa the boons in exchange for the third boon which Nachiketa had asked, because Lord Yam also wanted to know, just the way as God decides who will get God's grace. So someone like Lord Yam also wanted to test the person, the seeker, and see whether it's worth all the effort that he's going to put in to give that knowledge to Nachiketa. So all these Prabloban, if I may say, all these enchantments were thrown at Nachiketa, and he refused all of them. So Lord Yam was satisfied that he's at the first stage of this process. That means he's in control. Nachiketa is in control of his own senses. So he was already at this stage. And thereby, you can also relate to the difference between the audience, between the seeker that is presented in the Bhagavad Gita and the seeker that is presented in the Upanishads, Kathopanishad, right? So that was the first discipline, to control the senses. And therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, control of senses, control of desires is repeatedly said. Here, we are not talking that much about it because the student has already reached that level. Now, the second discipline is to direct the mind to our core, our heart. And the third discipline that we have been talking about is a single pointed focus. And the verse that we recapped, the 16th and the 17th verses talk about that syllable, the best support as being the syllable Om. So, deep meditation is what will take us to God. Mere deep spiritual knowledge, which is referred to as pragyanen in this verse, will not take us to God, because God is beyond intellect. So, whatever spiritual knowledge you're trying to acquire at the level of the intellect will not take you to that Paramatman. So, that was verse number 1.2.24. And the last verse of this section, verse number 1.2.25, I shall read. Yasya brahma cha kshatram cha ubhe bhavata odana mrityu yasya upsechanam ka ittha veda yatra saha. So the verse translates to whom the creator, power and might, both are but food, and to whom death is like a condiment, who knows where and how it is. Let's take this up word by word. Yasya, to whom? Brahma, the creator, right? Cha, and Kshatram is the Kshatriya, or power, representing power. Cha and Ubhe, both. Bhavata are Odanaha, food. Mrityu, death. Yasya, to whom? Upsechanam is like an accompaniment to food. So it's a condiment, curry, pickle, and so on. Kahu, ithya, thus, Ved knows, yatra, where, saha, that is, or it is, right? So the verse translates to whom the creator and power and might both are but food, and to whom death is like a condiment, who knows where and how it is. So let's read it together. Yasya brahma cha kshatram cha ubhe bhavatah odanah मृत्यु यस्य उपसेचनम कह इत्या ved yatra saha. So the import is very simple. What is the verse saying? That even the wise soul who does come to see God by God's grace, and then to understand that Paramatman who is everywhere and everything, and for whom the creation, the power or the movement in our daily cycles, and death are mere food and condiments. Now look at the simile, food that we consume every day and with its accompaniments. It almost reminds us of the Bhagavad Gita, verse number 16 of chapter 11, the vision of the cosmic form, which the some of the words which translated to with many arms, stomachs, mouths, and eyes, I see you in endless form everywhere. So all these verses are actually using symbolic expressions. Bhagavad Gita verse was talking about hands and feet everywhere and mouths, right? Which actually implied that all the various kind of movements that we can possibly have, which are all expressions of Brahman. This verse is talking at a higher level. It's talking about creation, power, and death, the cycles of creation, maintenance, and dissolution. So even those are like food and condiments. That's what the verse is saying. So, because God is the substratum of all beings, everything and everyone dwells in the self. So, the entire universe is coming out of Brahman, it is existing in Brahman, and it's going back into that Paramatman. So, Paramatman is there in the creation, maintenance, and dissolution, but it is beyond that as well. And God appears to be consuming all beings at the end of the creation or the end of the macrocosmic cycle, destroying even death. Lord Yam is death, right? Or is representative of death. So he's saying that, so who are we in these cycles? Because, I mean, so who, when we are in these cycles, so even he is in this cycle of creation, maintenance, and death. So he's saying that how can we know that Paramatman? So the verse is actually setting limits to our pursuit of the self. And with that, we end the second subsection of the Kathopanishad. I will just end it as per our tradition. So we will do the and Iti Kathopanishad Adi par Pratham Adhyay Dvitiya Valli. So that brings to the end, and as our Indian tradition to indicate that knowledge is never actually ends, we are always learning. We will read the first verse of this subsection. And so that is verse number 1.2.1. I will just read and then we'll be open for question answers. Anyat shreha, anyat ut eva preya, te ubhe nana arthe purusham sinitah. तयो श्रेयः आददानस्य साधु भवति हीयते अर्थात या उ प्रेय वृणीते. I'll just translate this verse because I think it's one of the greatest verses of this Upanishad. In this world, there is that which is correct, Shreya, the other that is present, pleasant, Priya. Both bind the human to different goals. The one who chooses Shreya chooses well, and the one who chooses Priya falls away from the true goal of life. With that, we close our today's session.